ground beef cooked up in a tomato sauce topped with some sour cream. So for this recipe, you are going to need some ground beef, some tomato sauce or tomato puree, and some sour cream. Now for this recipe, I'm just using some store-bought tomato sauce / pasta sauce. This is an olive flavored one. You can use whatever is available at your local supermarket. Now store-bought sauces normally do have some added sugar, and the one that I'm using is about 4 net carbs per 100 grams, which is absolutely fine for me. However, you can make your own sauce or puree at home if you like. It's completely up to you. Now to cook my beef, I'm going to get my frying pan on the stove and I'm going to heat up some avocado oil. Now as always, you can use any keto approved cooking fat of your choice. Once that oil is nice and hot, I'm going to add in my ground beef. And I'm going to make sure that I mix it and spread it around the pan. You want to make sure that you break up the meat. You don't want big lumps of meat. Now I'm going to season the beef with some salt and some black pepper. Now since this is a 3-ingredient recipe, I'm just using salt and pepper, but you feel free to use anything that you have in your pantry like paprika or cayenne pepper, maybe some cumin, maybe some dried herbs. It's completely up to you. Anyway, you just want to cook that meat, and that meat is going to release a lot of water now. You want to cook out all that water. We want to cook out that water and dry up the meat so that it starts to caramelize and get some color. Now normally when it comes to ground beef, I recommend you get 80-20, which is 80% lean meat and 20% fat. However, you can use whatever beef is available in your supermarket. In fact, I am using lean beef, so mine is probably 95% lean meat and only 5% fat, because that is what was available. Anyway, cook that beef till the liquid has all dried off, and at that point you want to add in your tomato sauce or your pasta sauce or whatever you're calling that sauce. In fact, you could just puree some plain tomatoes and put it in as well. Anyway, give it all a good mix, and now you don't really need to cook this for very long because the sauce is already pre-cooked. Obviously, if you're using fresh tomatoes or a fresh puree, you might need to cook it for about 5 to 7 minutes at least. And if you feel like the tomato sauce is not enough, you can add a little bit more. And if you'd like your beef and tomato sauce to be more soupy or more liquid, you can add some water, or you can cook it off even further to dry it out a bit more. Anyway, I just gave that one final good mix, and I think my beef and tomato sauce was ready, so I just took it off the heat. Then all you gotta do is serve yourself a nice bowl full of that delicious beef in tomato sauce. And then, ladies and gentlemen, the final step, which is to top it off with some sour cream, cause you know, it just tastes so good. Anyway folks, our beef and tomato sauce with sour cream is ready, and it looks so good. And of course, before you eat it, do not forget to mix that cream into the ground beef so that you get creaminess in every bite. Oh yeah, that looks so good. Beef and a blue cheese burger. So before we make our burger, we're going to make our secret burger sauce, and we're going to start with 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise. You can use homemade or store-bought, the one with the least amount of carbs. Then we add a teaspoon of Dijon mustard. You can add whole grain as well, no problem. Then a small teaspoon of sriracha sauce for a little bit of heat. And finally a little bit of balsamic vinegar just for that slight acidity. Give that all a good mix, and then our secret burger sauce, which is a secret no more, is ready. Now on to the beef, the water buffalo. What we're going to do is season it with some salt, some pepper, some fresh oregano, because that's all I had lying at home, but ideally I would have used rosemary given the chance, some balsamic vinegar, and then blue cheese. And then you got to give that all a good mix. Now I used about 65 to 70 grams of blue cheese, but if you like your burger a little less funky, then use less blue cheese. In fact, if you don't like blue cheese at all, you can completely change the cheese and use whatever cheese you like. Once that's done, we're going to make our burger patties, and I'm using this press mold that I have, which is quite good and it really makes it easy. Otherwise, just form them with your hands. It's the same thing almost. Alright, now it's time to fry up those burgers, and I'm using my new cast iron grill pan. So I have no idea how this is going to cook the burgers, but let's give it a go anyway. Once the pan is nice and hot, I'm going to give it a nice brushing of bacon fat so that gives the burgers a slightly smoky flavor. Then just lay those burgers on and let them cook on one side. Once they are done, we're going to flip them over, and I'm going to put on some cheddar cheese, and hopefully that will melt and we'll have some oozy cheddar cheese on top of the burger. Now normally when I use my frying pan, I throw a little bit of water on the pan, cover the burger, and the cheese will melt in that little mini steam oven that I've created. I'm not so sure about throwing water on this cast iron grill pan, so I just covered the burgers. Maybe I was a bit impatient, but the cheese wasn't melting fast enough, so I took the whole pan itself and I put it in my oven on the broiler setting to make the cheese melt. Anyway, once your burgers are cooked, leave them to rest for a few minutes. Now it's time to assemble the burger, and I'm using almond bread, the 2-minute microwave almond bread. I'm going to layer that with our secret sauce, some lettuce, and then the beef patties with the melted cheese on it. Some more of that secret sauce on the other side of the bun, and our burger is ready. And oh man, does that look good. I don't even think I can eat the entire thing. It would be near impossible, but let's give it a go anyway. Beef and broccoli, the classic combination. So the first thing I'm going to do is prepare my broccoli, and I'm going to cut the florets away from the broccoli stem. And I'm going to use a combination of my knife and my hands to get the job done. And of course, make sure you don't throw away the broccoli stem, because that can be used in a number of recipes. I'll put all the information on the blog post. So for the hamburgers, I'm using 80-20 ground beef. That's 80% lean meat and 20% fat. This will ensure a nice juicy burger. Now it's time to get your kitchen scale, and we are going to weigh out the meat for our burger patties. I'm going to make each burger patty about 115 grams. I think that's an ideal size. So weigh out the meat, and then I'm going to use this nifty burger making tool that I have. So you just put the meat in that, you squish it down, and the patty pops right out. But if you don't have one of these, don't worry, you can just shape them by hand. A rustic hand-shaped patty has its own charm. Now to make my burgers, I'm using my cast iron skillet, and I'm going to heat up some avocado oil in that. Now you can use a non-stick pan, you can use a stainless steel pan, you can even do this on the grill. But for me, the cast iron is the perfect tool for burgers. So once that oil is smoking hot, I'm going to put my burger patties into the pan, and I'm immediately going to hit it with some salt and some black pepper, because remember, we haven't seasoned the meat, so I'm just doing it in the pan. I find it much easier. Anyway, you are going to let this cook for about 3 to 4 minutes on a high heat, and the patty will develop a delicious brown crust. And you don't really need to do anything. You don't need to fiddle around with the meat. Don't play with your meat, ladies and gentlemen. After about 3 or 4 minutes, I'm going to flip those patties over. And oh yeah, look at the crust on those babies. Anyway, I'm going to hit this with a little bit of salt immediately, because we didn't season this side, though I should have. And then on goes a slice of cheese on each burger patty. And then I'm just going to cover it with the lid and let that cheese melt. After about a minute, take that lid off. You can see the cheese has melted. Our burgers are probably going to be cooked all the way through. And then there's nothing to do except remove it from the pan. Now you're going to notice that there is a lot of residual oil in the pan. We don't need so much oil, so I'm going to pour that oil right out. Get the pan back on the stove, and then in goes my broccoli. And then I'm going to add some water as well, about a tablespoon or so. And then I'm just going to cover the broccoli with a lid and let it cook for about 4 minutes. The idea here is that the broccoli is going to steam and become nice and tender. Of course, make sure you open it up halfway through the cooking, give it a good mix, make sure nothing is sticking or burning. And once your broccoli is done cooking, it's just a few more things to do. And after a few minutes of cooking, my broccoli is as tender as I like it. So what I'm going to do is throw a nice big knob of butter in the pan. And now I'm going to hit that broccoli with some everything bagel seasoning. Now the everything bagel seasoning is basically a generic mix of stuff. It has some onion, garlic, sesame seeds, poppy seeds and other spices. I'll leave a link to purchase this in the blog post on headbangerskitchen.com. But if you can't get your hands on this, you can use any seasoning that you like. Just salt, just pepper, maybe some paprika, maybe some cumin. It's completely up to you. I like the flavor of this, so I'm using it. So anyway, give it all a good mix. Taste your broccoli to make sure that it's cooked perfectly and has enough salt as well. And if you're okay with it, your broccoli is done and ready. Now I'm just gonna serve up my beef and broccoli. So I'm gonna put those burger patties onto my plate, one on top of the other. I'm gonna top it with some gherkins and then just surround that beef with the broccoli. And it looks so good, ladies and gentlemen. And ladies and gentlemen, that is your beef and broccoli lunch done and ready. A chili con carne, and it's going to be delicious. Juicy Lucy. We're not going to flavor the beef with anything fancy. We're just going to start by seasoning it with some salt, some pepper and some rosemary dust. The next thing we're going to do is shape our burger patties. Now here I'm going to be using this nifty burger making tool, but you can just use your hands to make it. So take some beef and lay it out nice and flat. Stuff it with some cheese. We'll make another small thin patty and cover it with and mold it together, and you've got a Juicy Lucy burger patty. Now remember to put this in the fridge for about 15 minutes before we fry it. Now while that's happening, let's make a delicious sriracha mustard mayonnaise, and we're going to take our favorite mustard, some sriracha sauce, some mayonnaise, give that a good mix together, and we've got our sauce for the burger. Now before we fry our burger patty, let's fry up some delicious bacon and cook it till it's nice and crispy. Once the bacon is done, remove it and add a little bit of oil in the same pan. We're going to use the same pan to fry the burger in and continue the flavors of the bacon. So you need to fry the burger patty for about 4 to 5 minutes on each side for a well done burger patty. Maybe a little less if you want it medium rare. Once it's done cooking, flip it over. We're going to layer a slice of cheese on that, cover it with a lid and let it cook some more. Oh my god, look at that burger. It's cooked and ready. We're going to take that out and let it rest now. In the exact same pan, we are going to grill our onions so it catches all that flavor. The onions need about 2 minutes on each side, and just season them with a bit of salt and pepper, and a little later add in some of those resting juices from the burger for extra flavor. Now that the onions are done, it's time to assemble the burger. We're going to put the bread down first, and then we're going to put the sauce, and then some lettuce leaves, and some tomatoes, and then the delicious juicy Lucy burger patty, and some crispy bacon, and then cover it up, and there you have it. The juicy Lucy is ready. That looks good. Ground beef cooked with some broccoli and some zucchini in a delicious creamy and cheesy sauce. So I'm going to start by prepping my broccoli, and I'm just going to cut the florets away from the stem. Just use your knife and cut those florets right off. You can also use your hands and just break the florets away from the stem. Pretty simple. And that's it, your broccoli is ready, but don't throw away the broccoli stalk. It can be used in a number of recipes. I'll put all the information on headbangerskitchen.com in the blog post. The next thing I'm going to do is chop up the zucchini, and since I had a pretty large one, I decided to only use half of it for this recipe. And the other half of the zucchini will be used after about 3 or 4 days when I need to make this dish again. So just cut the zucchini. I like to cut it down the middle and then chop it up into nice bite-sized pieces. And once you're done with the broccoli and the zucchini, it's time to get cooking. So I'm going to start as usual by getting my non-stick pan on the stove, and I'm going to heat up some avocado oil. If you don't have avocado oil, there are plenty of other options. I'll mention all of them on the website in my blog post. So once the avocado oil is nice and hot and just about starting to smoke, I'm going to add in my ground beef. Now you want to get 80-20 ground beef, that is 80% meat and 20% fat. If you don't like beef, you can use pork, chicken, lamb, whatever. Any ground meat will do the job. So anyway, put that beef in the pan and let it start cooking. I am, however, going to season it right now with some salt and some pepper, because I like to season the dish as I go along. That way you build a lot more flavor into it. I'm also going to throw in a little bit of red onion that I have and some freshly chopped garlic. And the onion is optional. You don't have to use it if you don't want to. If you don't like it, you can put as little or as much garlic as you like. But you want to cook the beef, the onions and the garlic together now. The onions will start to soften and that whole thing is going to smell really delicious. Once that's been cooking for about a minute, I'm going to season it now with some paprika. And I'm going to be generous with the paprika because I really love the flavor. I'm also going to throw in some red chili flakes because that's going to give it a little bit of heat. And some fresh thyme. And if you don't have fresh thyme, you can use dried thyme. You can also use rosemary, oregano. Plenty of options. It's completely up to you. Anyway, I'm just going to give this all a good mix and let it cook now. And what's going to happen is that beef fat is going to melt and render out, and the beef is going to fry with all these spices together, and all of it is going to fry and turn into something really beautiful. Anyway, the next thing I'm going to do is add in my zucchini. And I realized I have a lot of vegetables for this pan. But anyway, I'm going to give it a good mix without spilling any of it outside the frying pan. And then I debated whether I should put the broccoli into this frying pan or whether I should shift over and use a bigger dish for this. Anyway, I said let me take the risk, and then in goes my broccoli. And it all fits, but I'm going to have to be precautious while I'm stirring everything. Anyway, I'm also going to season the broccoli now with some salt, and I'm going to cover it now and cook it for about a minute or two. After checking in, I'm going to be brave and give everything a good mix and try and get everything mixed together without spilling everything out of the frying pan. And looks like I'm doing okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grate some cheese over this. And I'm using a cheese called Scaramuza, but you can use any cheese that you like. You can use cheddar, you can use mozzarella, you can use Gouda. It's completely up to you. Anyway, once I've grated a sufficient amount of cheese over that, I'm also going to add some heavy whipping cream. And now I'm just going to cover it and let it cook for a little while more. After a minute or two, I'm feeling brave and I'm going to give everything a stir once again, and hopefully nothing will spill over. And now I'm going to cook this for a bit longer because I want my broccoli to be nice and tender, but if you like it to have a little bit of snap, you can cook it for a shorter duration. So anyway, now I'm going to cover it and let it cook for a little bit more. And finally, now everything looks like it's coming together. I'm going to taste it because, well, I need to check the seasoning. And I felt that mine needed a little more salt, so I added a little more salt. And now, of course, you'll see that there is some liquid in the frying pan, and you'll want to reduce this, so you can cover it and cook it, or you can remove the lid and cook it. It's up to you. But now, to finish the dish, I'm going to throw in about a tablespoon or two of cream cheese. And this cream cheese is going to melt, and it is going to make the creamiest and most delicious ground beef and broccoli and zucchini stir fry. I mean, this is going to be awesome. So anyway, give it all a final good mix. And once the liquid in the pan has reduced to your liking, it's pretty much done. So I'm going to serve myself some in a bowl. I'm going to grate a little fresh Parmesan cheese on the top and sprinkle a little bit of paprika. And that's pretty much it. Our beef stir fry is ready.